Good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is Steve Walker. I'm Deputy Chief of Staff to Mayor Bowser, and we're excited to have you here for our Senior Budget Engagement Forums. We're here today at the Hattie Holmes Senior Wellness Center, as well as 11 other senior centers across the District of Columbia. Today, we're going to hear directly from you because we want to hear your budget priorities for the FY27 budget. So if you haven't already done so, and if you're watching on television, please dial in. You can reach us at 844-881-1314. If you have a question, press 0 and we'll try to get to you. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Mayor Bowser.
Good morning, Hattie Holmes. I am just so delighted to be here with all of you today, and I always love being, can you hear me okay? Okay, I always love being here at Hattie Holmes, and I was reminded as I came in when I was elected the Ward 4 council member back in 2007. Hattie Holmes was my very first ribbon cutting, the Hattie Holmes Senior Wellness Center. And I know that Mayor Fenty worked hand in hand with everybody to make sure that we got here, and seniors have used this space and loved this space and have met friends in this space, and I couldn't be prouder of what we have done here together at Hattie Holmes. I see your director, Teresa. Give Teresa a big round of applause. It's always good to see you. And I thought before we get started, we would just remember a friend of Ward 4 and a friend of Hattie Holmes and a friend of this neighborhood who's gone on to glory. But I just wanted to take a moment of silence for Reverend Graylin Hagler. So I know you will keep all friends at Plymouth Congregational in your prayers, but celebrate the life of a truly, truly wonderful man. So you heard Steve. I have, for the last 11 years, started our budget process, sort of in the middle of our budget process, after I've heard some from our directors, some from members of advocacy groups. I want to hear directly from DC residents about what they think budget priorities should be. In April, in the beginning of April, I will send to the council a balanced budget. And we have spent some time talking about what we think the revenues for the city will be in the next year and then the 3 years following that, and what that means for the budget I'll send to the council. Obviously, we all take care of our own household budgets, right? And so we know what that's like. We know we have dollars coming in, and we know the things that we have to spend money on, and we know the things that we want to spend money on. And we know that the price of everything is going up. Just to buy the same food next year is probably going to be more expensive. For the same utility cost use, it'll probably be more expensive. So given those challenges, how do we prioritize our budget? So I have a long view. I can look back over 11 balanced budgets. And I know that when we make the investments that make our city cleaner, safer, when we make the investments that allow our city to grow residents and businesses and create more jobs, when we make investments that ensure that we have the #1 park system in the nation, in the best urban school district in the nation, then we will grow our revenues and be able to invest in the types of human services that we are proud of. We already know that we are the best place in this region for seniors. Are we not, in Washington, D.C.? We know that we have the best programs and services, and seniors tell me every day that they're not only proud, that they want to grow and continue to thrive in Washington, D.C. So I want to kick off this forum. I know I'm looking at my screen that we have seniors gathered in other senior wellness centers across D.C. who are listening. We have still more who are watching on Channel 16 and have dialed in so that they can press a button and ask a question. So we're going to get started. But before we talk about the budget in particular, I want to introduce our director for the Department of Aging and Community Living, Sharon Hines.
Thank you, Mayor Bowser, and good morning, everyone. It's so good to be at my home wards, as well as the mayor and Jenny and Kelly. Yeah, so we're all Ward 4 residents. Steve is just the neighbor. He's in D.C. though. But I told the mayor about how inspired I was this year with the Fresh Start 5K. Like, I will authentically say I completed the entire 5K. Like, I walked it the whole time. Usually I'm stopping and taking breaks. And then as a result, I then kicked off here in a chair aerobics class because I realized that, I'm not quite DACL yet. I'm approaching. But what I oftentimes hear from everyone is how you have to start now so that you have to stay moving. And so that's one of our pillars at DACL, living boldly, moving boldly. And so I want to acknowledge everyone who cheered me on in that class because I wasn't sure I was going to finish it. But I also want to acknowledge and thank all of you for being here today in person at our over 11 watch parties across all 8 wards of D.C., watching us on TV and on the phone, because we know it's important that as we continue to evolve as a city and a nation, that we still have those old school practices and habits. That's why the mayor has been very intentional about starting with you, with a senior teletown hall, because we know back in the day, we didn't have smartphones, right? If something happened and you needed to tell somebody, if you didn't knock on their door, you were calling them, or you were creating a flyer handwritten or with a typewriter. So it's good that we have evolved, but we're able to tap into all of those different communication strategies to keep us informed. And that's something the mayor has been very focused on. We always want you to know that your presence matters. Your voices matter. And we truly appreciate you taking this time to engage with us. I also want to thank our mayor, Muriel Bowser, for her continued leadership and her strong commitment to prioritizing seniors. We know how important it is as young folk. We young folk up here, right? But we aspire to be where you are. And we know the importance of pouring into our past, our present, and our future. And all of you have collectively poured into our cups over these last 11, going on 12 years to ensure that the seniors in Washington, D.C. continue to receive those free services and programs from the Department of Aging and Community Living. So thank you to Mayor Bowser for that vision around older adults continuing to be centered on how we plan, invest, and move our city forward. I also want to thank, oh yeah, that is an important, yeah. I also want to thank our senior service network that's a part of the Department of Aging and Community Living. It's comprised of over 40 grantees that make sure that our senior wellness centers are running, our various programs and services, in particular our community dining sites, which Hattie Holmes serves as one as well. And many of them are here and present with us across the city today at these particular teletown hall watch parties. This forum, it's simple. You just had to show up like you normally do to the Senior Wellness Center. You still had opportunities to engage in your exercise classes. You still get your hot, nutritious meal today. But it's powerful because you get to tell us what matters to you. You get to inform how we continue to serve each and every one of you better. So you're not shy. We in Ward 4, number one. I'm going to take a little point of privilege. Ward 4, we're very vocal. We know how to self-advocate and advocate for others and advocate for the neighbors and for your grandchildren, nieces, nephews, church members, people you meet when you're in the grocery store, people you meet when you ride in the bus. And we appreciate that feedback because it matters. Your input helps us shape what the future of aging in the nation's capital looks like. So even when challenges arise, our commitment to you does not change. Now, in the spirit of Reverend Hagler, I'm going to say it one more time, right? Even when challenges arise, our commitment to you does not change. All right, I need a few more. Right. And with that, I say thank you.
Thank you. And so, thank you, Director. And now I want to introduce our City Administrator, Kevin Donahue, and my Budget Director, Jenny Reed, to walk through the budget process, and then we'll get to some questions.
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for having me today. So I've been through every budget engagement forum with the mayor over the past 12 years. And I'm going to be really quick about this, but it's really important to provide some context so you're thinking of the budget as we think of it. So first, from a process standpoint, what does it look like to formulate the budget? Well, it happens really over 12 months. We start in October, and really for the first few months, we identify how much does it cost to do next year what we're doing this year. So the mayor talked about inflation. Well, how much do schools cost? How much does transportation cost? How much does it cost to build affordable housing? So we spend a few months looking at every program, understanding what are the inflationary pressures that result in basically a number for next year that we would have to hit to be able to sustain that. And that's for the first few months. As part of that preparation from October to December, to look at inflation, we then shift from January through March, which is when Jenny and I used to get very involved in the budget, and then ultimately have recommendations to the mayor for formulation. And what that looks at is really looking at some fundamental questions about how to best use resources that are limited, that will go into why they're limited in a moment. And that looks at how do we attract businesses so we have a vibrant economy, how do we keep families and residents that we have and attract new ones, and how do we make investments that fund programs so that we can keep up with inflation. And we provide her with options that allow for us to formulate a budget that we ultimately submit to the council around the first week of April. The council then gets the budget, and they have about 2.5 months. They have hearings, they have opportunities to advocacy, they mark the budget up, and if the mayor is the first draft of the budget, the council is the final draft, the final pen on what the budget looks like. They vote generally in early June to mid-June unless something unusual happens. The budget's finalized, it goes to Congress for review. Then we move into execution of the budget where we monitor, are we spending according to the plan? Are we doing what we said we would do in the budget? And if we aren't able to, let's pivot and make adjustments early in the year, and that's part of the accountability. Then we start the process all over again. I have found this to be an incredibly important part of what shapes the budget. There are questions that the mayor has towards the end that instinctively are a sense of what's the right balance between a dollar in one program versus another, and the feedback we get here has a very real and practical effect on the final decisions that get made, and I've seen it over 12 years, so this is valuable feedback we get. The next slide, and this is my final piece of concept before Director Reed goes into some of the programs, is if it's a household budget, and we're a household budget, just a multi-billion-dollar one, what's that look like? Well, here are the basic breakouts, and I'm going to go from largest to smallest. The single largest area of $22 billion that we spend each year, which is a mixture of federal and local funds, most of that goes for health and human services. Of the $7.6 billion, by far the largest part is our Medicaid funding. That represents probably on the order of over $5 billion out of the 7.6. The second largest part of that is homeless services and housing, protecting people who are at risk of losing their housing. That comprises the largest chunk of it. Enterprise financing and other, think of this as the things that we must do by law. Pension contributions, paying interest in our debt. So things that we really don't have discretion over, we just must fund those items. Education from a programmatic standpoint is the next largest part at $4.3 billion. That is mostly DC public schools, almost equal in size as the charter sector, as well as the programs we have for early childhood. If you combine all of that, just education, healthcare, human services, and the things that we must do by law like pensions, that represents about 70% of our budget. Everything else you can think of that the government does fits within the final 30%. That's going to be largely public works and government, so DDOT, contracting, environmental protections, followed by public safety. The $2 billion, the largest parts are police and fire. Together represent probably 70% of that $2 billion. And finally, economic development and regulation, so licensing businesses, providing economic and development incentives, attracting new businesses. And if you think of us as a household budget, you look at healthcare and homeless services as our biggest chunks, followed by education and childcare. So when we talk about sort of scarce resources and changes that the federal government has either created in our economy or imposed upon us, 70% of what we spend is healthcare, homeless services, education, or the things that we legally must do. And keep that in mind as you think about feedback for us. Director Reed will go into some of the some details to highlight some of the programs that we have.
Thank you, City Administrator. Good morning, everyone. So I get the privilege of talking about some of the great investments that the mayor has made in seniors over her tenure as mayor. So the mayor is very focused on making sure we're providing the right kind of care and support to seniors so that they can age independently and age in their home. So created by the mayor was the Safe at Home program, which has helped make modifications to homes so that seniors can age in place. We also created the Grandparent Caregiver Program, which provides support to grandparents who are raising their grandchildren. We've expanded the Home Delivered Meals program, created new dementia navigators, and expanded the very popular Connector Card program to help seniors get transportation all around the city. In addition, we want to make sure that you're able to live healthy and you have good social connections. So we invest a lot in our Department of Parks and Recreation for senior programming, exercise classes, group sports, activity clubs, and more. We've created the Produce Plus program to help provide more fresh fruits and vegetables access to seniors. We've expanded our senior villages. We distributed lots of tablets to seniors during the COVID pandemic to make sure that you could still access your friends, your family, and importantly, your doctors and other necessary resources. The mayor cut the ribbon on the new Joy Evans Therapeutic Recreation Center in Ward 7. That is just a wonderful, fantastic facility. We're creating a new senior wellness center in Ward 8. And we are currently embarking on feasibility studies to see if where we can create new senior wellness centers in Wards 2 and 3. The mayor has made affordable housing a key cornerstone of her tenure as mayor, and we're very excited that we've been able to invest in a lot of affordable housing options to create more units for seniors. So most recently, we were able to create 108 units of affordable senior housing at the Berry Farm housing complex and 76 new units at the Bruce Monroe housing complex in Ward 1. So this is just a snapshot of some of the key investments that we've made, but you can see that we are making investments across the board so that you can live independently, live healthily, and have affordable housing. If we jump to the next slide, I just want to talk a little bit about our outlook for the upcoming budget that we're putting together, which is for FY 2027. So we have a balanced budget right now. We actually have a requirement in DC that we have to balance our budget over 4 years. Unfortunately, we are experiencing some challenges with economic growth. It's not a surprise to anyone that the impact of the federal government layoffs have really had an impact on DC's economy. And as a result, our revenues, while they're still growing, they're growing slower than our expenses are rising. And so as we look to build the budget next year, we're looking at about a $1.1 billion gap due to two reasons. One, we have fewer resources, so we don't have as many surpluses, a slower revenue growth really done by the federal workforce reductions, and then we have some tax code changes. But at the same time, we have costs that are rising. So we know that healthcare costs are rising, particularly for our Medicaid program. We have more demand for our child care subsidies. We have more need to pay into our pension system to cover higher utilities and rental costs. We need to make sure we're covering overtime, and we always have increases in our metro system. So these are some of the challenges that we will face as we put this budget together. And what we will think about, in addition to all of the input that we're going to get here today, is those kind of three guiding questions that the city administrator mentioned. So when we think about where can we put our dollars, we want to know, is it going to attract new families and help keep families here in D.C.? Is it going to grow our economy and generate revenue to support the programs and services that we want to fund? And is it going to create and attract new businesses that will provide new jobs to D.C. residents? So with that, I will turn it back over to Steve to start the discussion.
Great. Thank you very much, Jenny. So we're now, our favorite part of this conversation is we're going to hear from you. So again, if you're watching us on Channel 16, please dial 844-881-1314. And if you have a question, press 0, and we'll try to get you into the queue. And for everyone who's watching us from a remote site, we're going to try to take some questions from the phone, and we'll try to take as many from the sites as we possibly can. So we're going to start with our phone call first. Rosetta in Ward 4, you can go ahead and give us your question, Ms. Rosetta.
My name is Rosetta Say. I'm Ward 4. I'm a member of Safe at Home, as well as we're on Zoom doing exercise. It's imperative that we hope that you keep that budget going for the senior citizens. I have my doctor's appointments are every 3 months. I did so well during the program that the doctor said for me to come back in October, not in April, unless something, goes on. My lab work is all great. And my aches to know that Mayor Barr, the mayor will not run again, will not. I mean, she's fantastic. I love her so much for the things she's doing for senior citizens. And as well as the utilities are so expensive. Everything that she's doing has helped us so much. So I'm just asking, please keep the budget going for these things. The exercises keep us out of the doctor's office. Believe me, I'm a witness to that.
All right, I love that. I love that comment, that participating and staying active is keeping people away from the doctor's office. So I love that story. But you're away from the doctors because you have good results. So that's amazing to me. And this is what I know. Even though you've given me 12, this time next year it'll have been 12 years that you've given me to be mayor, and 8 years before that to be your council member. And I know the building blocks that we have built. And my challenge to my team is not only to build a great budget, but to make sure that nobody can undo our commitment to seniors. And so we're going to stay focused on that. But I need your help. I need you to be active, asking questions, advocating, and demonstrating why it's so important that programs like Stay at Home not only exist but grow. Because it's another way that Jenny talked about the new affordable senior housing that we're building. But we all know if you can afford to stay in your home and it's safe for you, that's the most affordable senior housing. And so we have to keep making investments in that. It's also important that you're safe. And I'm not just talking about in your home, I'm talking about outside your home. And that's why we have spent so much time over the last 3 years aggressively fighting crime and driving down crime. And I'm proud to say the work that we've done on Kennedy Street alone, MPD with federal partners have made Kennedy Street a much, much safer corridor. Last year, so far this year, we are down 70% in homicides in Washington, D.C. Carjacking down. So, we also, and part of my commitment to seniors is making sure that we don't go backwards on public safety. And so while we didn't talk about it specifically here, you talked about it with me all the time, that you want to be safe getting on the bus, going to transit, going back and forth to grocery and doctor's appointments. And so we have to make sure we have the police force that we need to keep the progress that we've made with public safety going. Thanks, Steve.
Great. Thank you very much. Our next question, we're going to go to Stanley in Ward 1. Go ahead, Stanley. We can hear you. Give us your question. Stanley, can you hear us? All right, we're going to move on. We're going to go to Renee in Ward 7. Renee, go ahead. We can hear you. We're going to move on to our next person, Janice in Ward 2.
You want to come here?
Yes.
Okay, why don't we go in the room?
Do you have a question? There's a question. Raise your hand if you have a question. Right.
Thank you very much to the panel. And I will start off by saying we are on hallowed grounds. Hattie Holmes is hallowed grounds. I worked almost 40 years with Hattie. She was my neighbor. And she says, I'm going to tell you like your grandmother and your aunt tells you in the morning, are you woke? And so I would like, and it includes all of the people on the panel, there's an infrastructure program in the D.C. government where youngsters are trained to go into various professions. And with the RFK bill, of which I testified on many occasions, and the work that's going to be involved in that, I would hope that the mayor and her team concentrates on the infrastructure program. In 1968, when I first came here, about 10 years later, I created a program for D.C. public school students where they would go out on construction sites. And I used Ward 4, building Lamond, building LaSalle, building Tacoma, 4 buildings downtown. And these students are now in those professions, some 40 years later. So as seniors, we have to look to the future as well with our children. So infrastructure program, and I'm glad that we're on the planet at the same time with you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Hassan. And thank you for bringing up our Infrastructure Academy. We created the Infrastructure Academy early in my tenure. And what is different about the Infrastructure Academy than some other workforce training programs is there is a job at the end. I partnered with all of our utilities, Pepco, Washington Gas, DC Water, Metro. I feel like I'm missing one. And at the time, and probably still, there were billions of dollars worth of work scheduled. DC Water, $4 billion worth of tunnels. Metro Pepco undergrounding project. Metro Silver Line. Billions of dollars of work happening. So what they committed to in joining the Infrastructure Academy, that they would set up their training program, they would implement it with our team and their team, and if a person completed successfully, they would have a good paying job at the end. And that has worked. We are now, my team is looking at all of our workforce training programs and starting from zero and building up. So if a program cannot demonstrate that people are getting jobs, then we're not going to do business with them anymore. And so that's that. But I also just want to let you know, because people frequently ask me about, what is the word, when training in high school, vocational training. Okay. So we have a new way of talking about vocational training, and new words, and it's called Advanced Technical Centers. We opened an advanced technical center at the old, this big school down here by McKinley, the old warehouse, Penn Center, at the Penn Center. And now high school children from all over DC public schools spend part of their day at their own high school and then part of their day training in healthcare at the Advanced Technical Center. We're going to open, we have opened another one in Ward 8 in Congress Heights at Whitman Walker, and children can go from their high school to the Advanced Technical Center for training, and we're going to even expand that. We have a waiting list in Ward 8 for the Advanced Technical Center. The Infrastructure Academy now has a new home at Spingarn. And I think I'm going to be cutting the ribbon there in a couple of weeks. So we're doing a lot around workforce training, and you're right to look to RFK. There are a lot of requirements to hire DC residents, and so we want to work with the unions to make sure that the union jobs that are required at that site are for DC residents. Thank you.
Have them come out of the high schools before.
Before, yep.
Great.
Got it.
Thank you. I think we have a question here from Ms. Shirley.
Good morning to the panel.
Good morning.
And it's so good to see you. Thank you for coming out this morning. As soon as I put my glasses on, I'll ask a question.
Okay.
How will the budget impact education from pre-K through higher education? Will we lose or gain funding? And I'm specifically interested in higher education, where we can go to some universities and take free classes for education purposes and also for exercise. So will we lose or gain funding in that area?
Okay,
Thank you.
that's a great question. Let me ask Kevin or Jenny to start, and I will add.
Thank you. I'm going to go in chronological order from youngest age towards older. So for pre-K, one of the largest parts of that pie chart I showed you was early childhood education. And within that, providing subsidies for families who be able to afford to have access to child care centers in DC is probably the single largest investment we make pre-K, so 0 to 3, sometimes 0 to 5 years old. And we're really trying to prioritize in our budget access and affordability of child care. Now for DC public schools and the charter schools, pre-K through 12th grade, funding will be increasing. And what we look at, because we know cost increase, is we really have conversations by school of understanding how can we make sure those school principals have the funding to be able to basically keep the critical staff, the educators that they have this year, next year. So I use that phrase, what does it cost for this year to next year? So we try to prioritize for a school that say their enrollment hasn't changed, so it's not like they're increasing or decreasing students, that they can afford to keep the adults in that class that are in classrooms educating kids, and that's a priority that we have, and so we'll see education funding increasing. For higher education, there's a few different aspects to it. First of all, we prioritize making sure our UDC is funded. We also prioritize, and this is a change that will impact thousands of families whose children go to universities, state schools outside of DC. There's more funding. There's now $15,000 per year instead of $10,000 per year. So $20,000 to $25,000 of benefit to families who send their kids to state schools. That was a change that Congress made as a result of advocacy from the mayor over the past really several years. So we'll be able to have more benefit and more access to state schools if folks need to go to state schools outside of DC. Then you asked about education classes. And I'm going to turn to my budget directors toward talking about education classes. and the opportunities we have for folks either at DPR or higher education around DC.
Sure. So we do have lots of programming at our Department of Parks and Recreation facilities that's specifically geared towards seniors. There is a full listing on the DPR website where you can find out sort of what the different classes are, what the time is, where they're located. For UDC, there's the ability to enroll in courses. I don't believe we have a subsidized course offering for seniors. I know that at some places around the country, they do like low or no cost options, so that's something that we'll definitely look into.
Great. Thank you very much, Jenny. Once again, 844-881-1314 and press 0 if you have a question. We're going to try another phone call now for Miss Alice in Ward 5. Miss Alice, if you go ahead, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you everyone for this meeting. Thank you, Mayor, for all of the senior programs that you have provided. I just want to say first and foremost, I am taking full advantage of all of the programs, or most of the programs that you offer, and I just ask that those programs be considered in your new budget coming up for 2027. They are very beneficial to us. My question was just answered about education because I am interested in continuing my education through a subsidized program, and it's good to know that DPR may have something there of interest for me. My question is there anything in the budget for seniors transitioning, or will there be anything in the budget for seniors trying to transition from their home, I live at home, I own my home, into a facility for seniors that would be affordable to me without my losing all the mobility and independence that I have at my home?
Well, those are great questions, and our focus is on how do we encourage the production, the building of more new senior housing. Probably the most recent addition in Ward 4 is over here at Fort Totten, where there is an all-senior building that was built, and then also at Walter Reed, all-senior facility built. And we have examples like that all over the city where we have encouraged a beautiful building that we just opened at Berry Farm, for example, that is a senior building. And so with that, ma'am, these are largely private buildings that function as an apartment building where you make your home. There are opportunities for assisted living. Some seniors will decide to go independent, but have the option for assisted living wherever they live. We are challenged, and I challenged all of our development projects to have more options for all levels of care, from independent all the way to nursing care on the same property. And so I will continue to ask DACL to help us post where these opportunities are, so you know exactly how to take advantage of them.
Thank you very much. We're going to take a question here from the audience. We'll go back here.
How you doing? My name is Russell.
Hi, Russell.
I represent Ward 8. I'm a senior citizen myself, and I'm appreciated for the opportunity to be in here to be an advocate to some people that may be in the situation that I'm in at this time. I've been trying to move forward in this position that I'm in, but I'll keep on running into variables as far as getting into a senior citizen home due to the income I get a month, either I'm above or I'm below, you know, and I don't really know what direction to go into, so I'm just thankful for being here today so I can get some information and some help, because I'm a little bit above my rent and I can't afford it, but I am a senior citizen. I do get income to provide a housing for myself, but I need an income, I mean a housing to be able to afford the income I receive every month.
I got it. And so Director Hines and I will make sure that someone follows up with you to make sure we have all of the different housing navigators at our various agencies to make sure you know what's out there and what's available. But thank you for the question. We'll get that before you leave today.
Great. We're going to go to the phone line again. Ms. McFarland, Ms. Eleanor, we can hear you. We can hear you if you have your question. All right, we're going to go back to the room here. We have one here. Question?
Good morning, Mayor and the
Good
panel. My name is Barbara Farmer. I live in Ward 7, but my concern is the transportation here at Hattie Homes. We only can seat 14 people on a bus. So we need to get a bus that can seat at least 25 or 30 people. The list is long, it's way past 14 seats. So we definitely need to get a better transportation.
Okay, let me work on that. Thank you for bringing it to my attention.
Thank you. We're going to try another phone call. Terry in Ward 4. Go ahead, Terry. We can hear you.
Good morning. Thank you for taking my call. Thank you, Madam Mayor, for conducting this kind of a forum every year. I am going to ask this question that you may be able to answer, or someone in the room, and it's regarding the homestead deduction, but more importantly, the senior real estate property tax deduction program that, we know that the federal government, with the stroke of a pen, took $1 billion from us this past year. I imagine that and, maybe additional impacts, we're going to have to fill that $1.1 billion gap that might even grow. Are the tax programs at the whim of council, the whim of the mayor's budget process, or is it codified in law and needs to be, in order for it to change, does it require change in laws?
Yes, so the council has the authority to change tax structure, and they do so frequently. I have the ability to propose a change in tax structure. I don't do so often, and it would have to be approved by the council. So you started off by asking about the senior property tax deduction. Since I was the council member, I have been working on that and trying to expand it. And I think it's up to, is it one, what's the income limit?
It's about 150.
150, I think, is the income limit. So if you're a household with a household income below $150,000 and you're 65 or older, you qualify for the senior property tax credit, which means you pay half of your property tax bill. And as long as I've been doing this, it's always somebody, when I say that, who is not getting the credit they are entitled to. Okay, so if your household income is below $150,000, you're 65 or older, you qualify to pay 50% of your tax bill. So if your property tax bill comes in and it's $6,000, you should be paying $3,000, okay? So it's a very simple form. If you're not getting it, I think they ask you like 5 questions, and you are entitled to it. But you can see that adds a lot of money back. The homestead deduction, we haven't had any changes to that, I don't think.
No.
Although there was one proposed.
It's adjusted for inflation every year. So there's like a small increase, but there hasn't been significant changes. Mayor, you also lowered the senior property tax assessment cap.
Yes.
Making sure that, for most homeowners, their property taxes can grow up to 10% per year. But for seniors, the mayor made sure that that was only limited to 2% a year.
Okay. So this was a change to property taxes, I think, that the council made 2 years ago, or was it last year?
2 years ago. Mayor.
2 years ago, the council did propose a property tax change for homes, I think, assessed over $2 million or $2.5 million. And the rate of property tax on those homes was increased. I do not think we should be raising property taxes, okay? And so this is something for us to watch in this budget process. I just heard the mayor of New York City propose raising property taxes on everybody in New York City. sometimes these ideas trickle down here. So make sure that when you are talking to members of the council that you tell them you do not want them to raise your property taxes. Okay.
Mayor, may I also add, just on for seniors, there's also a tax credit called Schedule H, and it's available for both homeowners and renters. And there's income qualifications, but tax preparers, both the free preparation clinics that are funded throughout the city, as well as your own. This can help give you a credit on your income tax for the amount of property tax you pay. It's called Schedule H. That's the name of the form. It's a terrible name. We should name it something catchier. But I always encourage seniors to check that out because a lot of people don't know it's available.
Great, thank you. We're going to go to Ms. Pat here at Hattie Homes.
Hello, Mayor and Ms. Hines. My question is about, I keep hearing on the news about cutting budgets in D.C. for different things, schools, senior centers, Why are we cutting, my question is, why are we cutting budgets when the district is making a lot of money off of these cameras, off of the gambling? They told us when they bought the gambling in D.C. that the money would go towards schools. That didn't happen. The schools are struggling for money.
No, ma'am. No. I got to stop you on that one. Let me just say, our schools are not struggling for money. So if anybody said that about public schools in Washington, D.C., they are mistaken. And every year of the last 11 years, we have increased school funding. And we increase it because sometimes our school population has grown. What we pay our teachers have grown. I have signed 3 historic contracts with the Washington Teachers Union to make our teaching corps the best paid in the region, and cost of everything is going up. So our schools are well funded, and if you compare us to any urban school district, you will see how well funded our schools are. So that's not happening.
Getting cuts in the senior center budgets?
I don't believe that we have in our previous budgets cut senior centers budgets. And given, how well our senior centers are used, I don't anticipate that being part of my budget. So what we got to make sure, however, this is what I'm going to add. You remember the questions. This goes for you too. All right? You remember the questions. Does this expenditure help me retain or attract DC residents? Retain and attract. Right? Does this expenditure help me grow revenues? Well, maybe. All right? Does this expenditure help me attract jobs or new businesses? Right?
In D.C. right now, we're having problems with getting jobs in the city.
Well, let me tell you how we're approaching that. Because I would answer for senior centers, the likely answer to that is no, right, to the last question. But it is a big yes to the first question. And it is a competitive advantage for us, okay? We want to keep you right here in D.C. You have choices, right? You may, for the person who asked me about selling her home and moving someplace else, you may say, I'm going to move to Maryland. Nothing wrong with Maryland, but you wouldn't want to do that, right? You want to stay here where you have the best senior services. So we regard our senior service program as a retention program, partly. I'm using economic terms now, for DC residents. All right? We also know that when you come and you're active in a senior program, you don't show up on that program for where healthcare costs are going up, like our first caller said, because now you're healthy and thriving in your home. And so our senior programs help us retain. And we know because we have stellar senior programs, you're not likely to want to leave DC to move someplace else.
Well, I would love to stay in DC.
Of course.
But the conditions with cost of living is so high in DC. And if you're a senior, you're not making a lot of money.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's hard for you to get into a senior. Right down the hill from my house is the New Center on Ridge Road.
Mm-hmm.
But the prices there are above what some of my neighbors can afford.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't looked into it because I'm not planning on moving out of my house anytime.
Right.
But it's still a struggle to stay in the house.
I understand.
But so what can they do something about what they're charging people to move to get into a senior living quarter?
Yes. So part of what we have to focus on is creating housing where people of all incomes can afford, and it's based on your income. And that I'm not exactly sure how that building is. For example, we just proposed a building in Chevy Chase. And we just opened a building in Chevy Chase by the Hurt Home. You all know the Louise Hurt Home on Western Avenue. And there is new apartments there for seniors. And the rent is based on your income. So either you pay 50% is for incomes up to 50% of the AMI or 30% of the AMI. So we have programs like that across the city. That the city has been involved in funding, and therefore we require those numbers of affordable units to be present. And so sometimes it takes a little bit of navigating. That's why we have people at the different housing agencies that can help walk you through all of the available programs. But as I started, and as you just emphasized, you want to stay, if you have a house and you want to stay in your house, programs like Safe at Home help extend the time you have to stay in your house. We also have programs at DHCD that are low-cost loan programs that will allow you to make bigger repairs. Sometimes people will say, I haven't been able to keep up with the roof or the windows or larger, or I need a first-floor bathroom or things like that that are larger cost items. We have a program at the Department of Housing and Community Development for small residential repairs.
Thank you very much. As a reminder, we have 2 additional budget engagement forums coming up this Saturday at the Berry Farm Recreation Center, 11:30 a.m., and next Thursday at Dock 5. And so you can find all this information at budget.dc.gov. We have over 3,000 people who are listening online right now. At budget.dc.gov, you can continue to ask questions and share your budget priorities. We're going to take one final call, a question from a caller. Miss Dorothy in Ward 4, we've got the line open. We can hear you.
She's not there.
All right, we don't have Miss Dorothy. We'll take
this
one more
young lady
question
here.
here, and then.
My name is Joy. My name is Joy. And my concern is over the evidence of mental health needs among our children. The evidence. Suicides. Nothing like this have I experienced. In the last 2 weeks, 2 of my contemporaries had children commit suicides because of social media. So we've got some challenges that we didn't have 20 years ago. What about them?
Thank you, ma'am, for that question, and I'm certainly sorry for that loss. And we have had that discussion certainly in my senior leadership teams, that children and my contemporaries, people are experiencing significant amounts of stress and anxiety at levels I'm not sure we've seen. We especially saw it post-COVID. When people were separated from their activities of normal daily living, we really saw children return to school in not great shape. And we see this as an employer of 37,000 people. We see it among our own employees that need more. The thing that we are very proud of in DC is most everyone has access to health insurance and should be visiting their doctors. There is a nationwide shortage of mental health providers, however. And so we're all dealing with how to get people seen and get to care as fast as possible, given the shortage of providers. You should also know about the question that was asked about schools. We are committed to having healthcare professionals in our schools. And DC Health has recently taken over the provision of school personnel and making sure we're getting up to that. We have struggled with our commitment to get to the number of mental health professionals that we need for every school because of the shortage of mental health professionals. But we continue to focus on getting there and doing exactly that. I don't know, Kevin, if you have anything to add about mental health.
I just would add, every December we have a year-end cabinet meeting that the mayor hosts. And each year she has book suggestions for her cabinet. This year I went to the cabinet meeting, and a book that she gave her cabinet was called The Anxious Generation. I'm the father of a 19 and 17-year-old. And there are things that I could see, and I don't want to blame too much on COVID, but I'll say it's the long tail of COVID, in which we saw increases in behavior that brings harm to oneself. Sometimes it manifests in drugs, sometimes it manifests in suicidal ideations, sometimes in gun activity, sometimes in driving too quickly. But everything went up. And the book actually explained to me the generation that I've been trying to understand more fully, and it's a very good book. But what was fascinating is the first chapter sort of talked about this notion that, like, you're not alone, that it's not just a phenomena of cities or of the United States, but it looked at the number of suicides, hospitalizations, behavioral health crises, all the things that manifest as adolescent mental health challenges across countries, across racial groups, across income. Not a single group was held harmless from what we're seeing around us. So we don't have all the answers. We've made some changes. We're now having the behavioral health professionals be DC government employees, so we think we'll do a better job attracting them. Then we have more oversight and accountability around them. We don't allow cell phones to be used in schools anymore, something happening across the country. So we're all trying to catch up and understand what can make our kids safer. But it's something that will be the story when people write histories of the lost year in kids' childhood. They won't talk about the 1 year, but the many years that follow that.
Well, thank you, Hattie Holmes, for your hospitality and for your great questions. And I want to invite you to continue to follow the budget process. There were several things that were brought up that I want you to communicate with your members of council about, your ward council member, the at-large council members, about what's important to you. So thank you very much, everybody.